This is Mr. T here. This is a video on how to rearrange physics equations. Look over it a couple of times to try and help you with this skill. The first formula equation we have has three quantities to it. Notice that the one that we want is called the subject. It's on the right hand side at the top. Now, in order to make V the subject, we're going to have to move D to the other side and use what's called the inverse rule. The inverse rule relates to the quantities in a physics equation. If we move one quantity across the equal sign, it becomes the inverse of what it was doing. So if it was adding, it subtracts. If it was dividing, it multiplies. If it was a square root, it becomes squared, and vice versa. In this case, we took D, it was dividing, we put it over the left hand side, so now it becomes multiplication. Once we have the subject on one side all by itself, all we do is flip the baby over, and there we go. We've got subject on the left hand side, and we've got our equation all rearranged. This is a more complex equation, more common in level 2 physics. You can see that we've got both adding and multiplication on the right hand side here, and we have an order as to which we have to move the quantities over. We start with the ones that are adding or subtracting, second are the ones that are dividing and multiplying, and third are squared or square root. Here V1 is being added, so we're going to move it across first. Initially on the right hand side VI was adding, so when we moved it across the left hand side it was needed to be subtracted by the quantities that were already there. So we get VF minus VI. The next step we're going to do is multiplication, and so we're going to move T over the other side. Remember, if two quantities are just next to each other with no operator in between, they are actually being multiplied. So T was multiplied by A on the right hand side. We've moved it over the left hand side, so it now divides everything that's on the left hand side. So we get VF minus VI divided by T. Right, all we need to do now is flip this equation so that our subject's on the left hand side and we're ready to go. Right, here's our third example. Notice this is slightly more complicated because our subject has a squared just above it. Now when we do our squared, remember that was the last thing that we were going to do. So we would do addition or subtraction first and multiplication or division second. Since we've only got multiplication, division, no subtraction, addition, we're going to go and do that one first. The R here is going to be moved over to the left. On the right, R was dividing the subject of the equation, so when we moved it over to the left, we multiplied it to AC. The last thing we're going to do to rearrange this equation is we now have to get rid of the squared on the right hand side. Now we do that by moving it over to the other side, and it becomes a square root. When you put the square root over on the left hand side, make sure you put it over the whole equation. So everything on the left hand side, when we move that squared over and made it a square root, is square rooted. Okay, finally, once again, the last thing we do is we just flip the equation over, and there we go. On the left hand side, V is our subject. All done. I hope you find this video on rearranging physics formula useful. Look for further videos on other level 2 physics.